All right. Kohaloyim, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shah, Ba'ashem, Akakodash. Double honors to the apostles and others of Great Millstone who rule well over the flock. Shalom and salutation, you brothers out here pushing words with truth and sincerity. I believe this video is going to be edifying. And we're going into Daniel 7. Upon doing a lot of research for this video, I realized that knowing the history, knowing prophecy, knowing just the history, man, it gives you a great rundown of how close we are to the coming of the day of the Lord. So I beseech brothers, get into the history. It gives you that much better of a grasp of what the scriptures is really about. Because, I mean, what, 95% of the Bible is history. And then you can say the other 3% is current. And then the rest is future prophecy. So, I mean, you got to be big on history. You got to be a history buff to really grasp a lot what's going on. And there's so much, it's vast. So many captivities, so many rulers, so many kings, so many events, so many sieges to remember. So you do your best. Shout out to these brothers and the apostle Orion Lab, who I learned from, Paya Allah over there in London. And you have this brother here from Humus Contrition from Montreal. I learned a lot from their videos as well. So let's get back into it. Daniel 7:1. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heavens strove upon the great sea. The four winds symbolizing east, west, north, and south, right? And which is where these beasts that he saw in his dream are coming from. All over. It says, and the four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. So these are beasts, things that don't actually exist, but he saw them in his dreams. These are not animals you walk outside and you see. These are just beasts peculiar to his vision. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. So you never saw that in your life, right? And the brothers put up their depiction here. This is a good just a depiction, as you can see, the lion with the eagle's wings. Let me show y'all something. A good commentary that basically is right on point with the Apostle Orion Lab's breakdown. And the brothers who get their breakdowns from the apostles is called the Commentary of Sir Isaac Newton. You've heard of Sir Isaac Newton before. Little did you know he was a biblical scholar. He even knew that the Trinity was a myth. They're not all the same. Actually, they're different entities. There's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, completely separate. That's from his own words, Isaac Newton. In his beliefs. It says in his commentary, the first beast was like a lion and had eagle's wings to denote the kingdoms of Babylonia and Media, which overthrew the Assyrian Empire. Now, he goes on to say that the wings, and Apostle Orion Lab even said that one wing symbolizes the Babylonians who took down Assyria. And Assyria obviously is the empire that the lion, the first beast, which is a lion, represents, because Assyria was known as a nation that used the Griffith. All right, they used the Griffith. Let's see if I can get a quick something on Assyria real quick. And as soon as I pop up Assyria and I look in some images, here goes, and I type my art, you'll see this Griffith. That's no coincidence that it's a lion defeated right here. That's no coincidence. There's also a lion defeated over here. Okay, there's also a lion being defeated right here. But the Assyrians are actually that lion which that's no coincidence. That's the first thing that popped up. But they also have this Griffith-like animal here, you know, it's like the with the wings on it. So it's an animal, like a four-legged horse-like animal with the head of a man, and the wings on it. So this is something that they used quite often, as you can see, and it's right on par with the line. You know, instead, in the reference for Daniel's is a lion with wings. Okay, so the lion is the Assyrian Empire, and the wings denote the Babylon Media. Why? Because Medo-Babylonia conquest of Assyrian Empire is a real thing, as you can see. The Medo-Babylonian conquest of the Assyrian Empire was the last war fought by the Neo-Assyrian Empire between 626 and 609 BC. Let's go down. You read here. See that name quite a lot too. Nabopolassar. Rise up and seize Babylon. Go down here. It says, here we go. The Neo-Babylonian, where I'm reading here. The Neo-Babylonian, which Neo means new, empire, and the newly formed Median Empire under Cyaxares, which I believe Cyaxares was also known as Darius the Mede, if I'm not mistaken. Either him or his father. Let's see if I can find that here. Anastasis. Cyaxares. Could be wrong, but I think he was also known as Darius the Mede. His other name was Cyaxares. It's not going to tell me here. Predecessor. Yeah, see, he was right after him came Astyages of the Median Empire, and Astyages was the last of the Median Empire before Cyrus the Great took him down. Yeah, so I believe this is Darius the Mede. Let me find out. So it does say under Darius the Mede, most scholars view him as a literary fiction, but some have tried to harmonize the book of Daniel with history by identifying him with various known figures, notably Cyrus or Cyaxares, as you can see here, Cyaxares. So that's why I did say that. Either way, the Neo-Babylonian Empire and the newly formed Median Empire under King Cyaxares then invaded the Assyrian heartland. In 614 BC, the Medes captured and sacked Ashur, the ceremonial and religious heart of the Assyrian Empire, and in 612 BC, their combined armies attacked and razed Nineveh, the Assyrian capital. So you have the Median and the Neo-Babylonian empires working together to sack the Assyrian Empire, what makes it very convenient enough to say that the wings are both Babylon and Media. But Apostle Ryan Lab in his breakdown pretty much just said the wing is Babylon, which, you know, I'm not fighting on that, you know. But we know that the lion is definitely Assyria, and the wings is including Babylon. It says, which overthrew the Assyrian Empire, and it divided between them, and thereby became considerable and grew into great empires. In the former prophecy, right? Let's stop there. Go. So the first, verse 4, the first was like a lion, Assyrian Empire. You can learn about the Assyrian Empire through the scripture. This is Ezekiel 31. I'm going to start at 3. Its title is Egypt compared to fallen Assyria. You are like mighty Assyria, which was once like a cedar of Lebanon with beautiful branches that cast deep forest shade, and with its top high among the clouds. Deep springs watered it and helped it grow tall and luxuriant. The water flowed around it like a river, streaming to all the trees thereby. The great tree towered high, higher than all the other trees around it. It prospered and grew long, thick branches because of all the water at its roots. The birds nested in its branches, and in its shade all the wild animals gave birth, and all the great nations of the world lived in its shadow. It was strong and beautiful, with wide-spreading branches for its roots, and went deep into abundant water. No other cedar in the garden of Yahweh could rival it. No cypress had branches to equal it. No plane tree had boughs to compare. No tree in the garden of Yahweh came close to its beauty, because I made this tree so beautiful and gave it so much magnificent foliage. It was the envy of all other trees of Eden in the garden of Yahweh. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says: because Egypt became proud and arrogant, and because it set itself so high above the others, with its top reaching the clouds, I will hand it over to a mighty nation that will destroy it as its wickedness deserves. I have already discarded it. So he's referencing Egypt to be just like Assyria, who was once high and lofty, and now how it's going to be taken down. Verse 15 says, this is what the sovereign Lord says: when Assyria went down to the grave, I made the deep springs mourn. I stopped its rivers and dried up its abundant water. I closed Lebanon in black and caused the trees of the field to wilt. I made the nations shake with fear at the sound of its fall, for I sent it down to the grave with all the others who descended to the pit, and all the other proud trees of Eden, the most beautiful and the most best of Lebanon, the ones whose roots went deep into the water, took comfort to find it, and there with them in the depths of the earth. Its allies too were all destroyed and had passed away. They had gone down to the grave, and those nations that had lived in its shade. All right, so as you can see, the Lord did away with the Assyrian Empire. And here's a few maps of the Assyrian Empire. As you can see, it's in the red, and the Babylonian Empire came in blue. So the Assyrian was very vast, all the way down to Egypt. Large, vast, all the way down to Egypt. Thebes, conquered all the way north to parts of Turkey, India, Pakistan mainly. So that's the Assyrian Empire, which capital was in Nineveh, which Jonah went to prophesy in. Also, Assur was the head of Assyria, which is close to Nineveh. Back in verse 4, I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it had lifted up from the earth. So these two wings ended up turning into something different. It says, and made stand upon the feet as a man. So the lion with the wings, once the wings are plucked off, they became as a man standing on his feet. It says a man's heart was given to it, and that's Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. That's when Babylon became a force to be reckoned with. Here's a map of the Babylonian Empire. This is before the Medes had taken Babylon from them. So at this point in time, Babylon was the top nation on the earth, the top empire on the earth, 606 to 536 BC. And it was a luxurious place, very beautified, built up, with the head as Nebuchadnezzar. Here's a quick story about Nebuchadnezzar in the scriptures from Daniel's 4:28, and this is in the NLT also. But all these things did happen to King Nebuchadnezzar. 12 months later, he was taking a walk on the flat roof of the royal palace in Babylon. As he looked out across the city, he said, "Look at this great city of Babylon. By my own power, I have built this beautiful city as my royal residence to display my majestic splendor." While these words were still in his mouth, a voice called down from heaven, "O King Nebuchadnezzar, this message is for you. You are no longer the ruler of this kingdom. You will be driven from human society. You will live in the fields with the wild animals, and you will eat grass like a cow. 7 periods of time will pass while you live this way until you learn that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of the world and gives them to anyone he chooses. That same hour, the judgment was fulfilled, and Nebuchadnezzar was driven from human society. He ate grass like a cow, and he was drenched in the dew of heaven. He lived this way until his hair was as long as eagle's feathers, and his nails were like birds' claws. After this time had passed, I, Nebuchadnezzar, looked up to heaven. My sanity returned, and I praised and worshiped the Most High, and honored the one who lives forever. His rule is everlasting, and his kingdom is eternal. All the people of the earth are nothing compared to him. He does as he pleases among the angels of heaven and among the people of the earth. No one can stop him or say to him, "What do you mean by doing these things?" When my sanity returned to me, so did my honor and glory and kingdom. My advisors and nobles sought me out, and I was restored as head of my kingdom, with even greater honor than before. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and glorify and honor the King of heaven. All his acts are just and true, and he is able to humble the proud. So Nebuchadnezzar was that leader and that man that stand up upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart given unto it. He was given that kingdom and that glory and that honor, even that situation right there from the Heavenly Father, when he glorified the Heavenly Father instead of himself. Going on into verse 5, because we're dealing with beasts, 4 beasts, which symbolizes the 2 first beasts symbolizes a mixture of nations or kingdoms and empires. As we can see, the wings symbolize the Babylonian and the Medes, the Medo-Babylonian coming together, rising together into conquest over Assyria, which is the lion. And now we have this second beast, which is a mixture also. It says, "And behold, another beast, a second, like to the bear," right? Because the bear was a mixture. It says, "And it raised up itself on one side," and also likened it to the bear because it deals with having one king, right? One king at a time. This is a monarchical empires. "And behold, another beast, a second like to a bear." So this one's likened to a bear, right? "And it raised up itself on one side." So this one, likened unto a bear, raised up on one side, monarchical. But there's 2 empires together in this bear. So that's the Medo-Persian Empire. Those were the ones who took the Medes came first. The Persians were always there, but the Medes also had a hand in taking down Babylon, as well as the Persians. Okay, but the Medes came into power first. Just to finish it out first, like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side. That's the side of the Medes. Except Salakia, that's the side of the Persians, who ended up getting the upper hand over the Medes. So it started out with the Medes taking over where Babylon left off. And then you had the Persians. So Darius the Mede, which Daniel refers to. And then later on, after Asturges comes in, then Asturges' grandson, who he tried to kill, according to the history, I forget the historian's name, it starts with an H. According to him, this Asturges' grandson was Cyrus the Great. And Cyrus the Great ended up being the leader of the Persians, who also led Israel back from Babylonian captivity. So the Persians were responsible for bringing us back into our from exile after that 7 years of exile into Babylon under Nebuchadnezzar. And then that was that. So the once again, the bear symbolizes the Medo-Persian Empire, which these are two separate people, but they ended up warring and battling together. But then it raised up on itself on one side, which was the Persian side, and it had three ribs in his mouth. Going back to the history, how the Persians took down three major states, three major powers. I'm gonna get into the first one. Well, basically the first one, Hyrcanus, I believe the name is. I forget this guy's name. I'm gonna find it out right now. Okay, here we go. So you learn a lot about Cyrus the Great from the ancient sources, mainly from Herodotus. You look at the Herodotus, the histories. He has a lot about Cyrus the Great. Also, all of these other people here. I've seen Xenophon's name. Of course, you know about Plato and Flavius Josephus. You've probably heard of the Cyrus Cylinder. So this is where you learn more about Cyrus the Great. So back in the Sir Isaac Newton commentary, just reading a little bit, he says the bear is the empire which reigned next after the Babylonians, as the Persians. Of course, we know it's just the Medo-Persians. All right, the bear symbolizes the Medo-Persians. That's why it's lifted up on one side. Thy kingdom is divided or broken, save Daniel, to the last kingdom of king of Babylon, and given to the Medes and the Persians. He's referencing Daniel 5:28. It says here, Perez, the kingdom, right? Mene Tekel Upharsin. This is where he's getting it from. Let's get it. Daniel's 5:25, and this is the writing that was written, Mene Tekel Upharsin. This is the interpretation of the thing. Mene, Yahweh hath numbered thy kingdom and finished it. Tekel, thou art weighed in the balances and art found wanting. Perez, thy kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. All right, so as you can see, that the bear symbolizing the Medo-Persian that ruled directly after Babylon. It says here, this beast raised itself up on one side, the Persians being under the Medes at the fall of Babylon, but presently rising up above them. That's what happened. The Persians started rising above the Medes. All right, that's when the Stages was taken down by Cyrus the Great. You read more about that in Herodotus, the histories, right? Well, basically, some people from when Cyrus the Great got a group of warriors together. He took down Babylon first. Then he went and took down the Medes, if I'm not mistaken. That's how that worked out. And the Medes turned against their own people. I think at that time it was in Egypt, if I'm not mistaken. Could have been Babylon. The Persians, let me get a quick picture of something. So this is a depiction of the Median Empire. Their capital was Ecbatana, right in the middle, the center, Ecbatana. And so I would look, they hadn't really conquered too much of Egypt or anything like that going into Lydia. But this is how the Median Empire pretty much looked. But then the Persian Empire, also known as the Achaemenid Empire, they were able to, like that bear, get more advantage over and cover more area than what the Medes covered. All right, that's why the bear lifted up on one side, because as you can see, Persia 539 BC to 330 BC. It says Empire of Cyrus, and then the conquest of Darius. In the lighter shade, Darius ended up conquering Egypt. Parts of it says Darius invades Europe to attack Scythians from the rear. So the reason why this bear had three bones in his mouth, referring to back in Daniel 7, it says, this beast was raised itself up on one side, the Persians being under the Medes at the fall of Babylon, but presently rising up above them. And it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. Those symbolized, it says, to signify the kingdoms of Sardis, Babylon, and Egypt. Now, when you look up Sardis and you go into, you go into that history again, just like that, I forgot his name again, but I said it earlier. You go into Herodotus's history, you'll learn about this taking down of Sardis. All right, Sardis was an ancient city best known as the capital of the Lydian Empire. So Herodotus talks about how Cyrus the Great took down Sardis. It says, after the fall of the Lydian Empire, this is one of the bones in the mouth of the bear. The bones also symbolizing east, west, and north. One of the empires was north. That's Lydia. The other one was south. That's it was Egypt. Let me make sure I got this right. It was Egypt. It was Babylon, and there was Sardis. So Sardis was north of Persia. Egypt was west of Persia, and Babylon was south of Persia. All right. And it says Sardis was an ancient city best known as the capital of the Lydian Empire. So you hear about Lydia talking about Sardis, and then the main guy of Sardis, his name is mentioned, Sardis king. Yeah, the siege of Sardis. Here we go. Croesus. You'll hear about Croesus, the king of Lydia, who reigned from 585 BC until his defeat by the Persian king Cyrus the Great in 547. According to Herodotus, he reigned 14 years. So the defeat is all documented. This is one of the bones in that bear's mouth, who's rised up one side. That was a siege when Cyrus the Great conquered Croesus in Lydia. Okay. So as you can see, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it. This is where I'm reading from. All right, Daniel 7 and 5. To signify the kingdoms of Sardis, Babylon, and Egypt. And you can Google each of these to make sure that conquering Persians conquered each of these. So type in Persia defeated Babylon in 539 BC, less than a century after its founding. The legendary Persian king Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon. The fall of Babylon was complete when the empire came under Persian control. So that's Babylon. And the last one was Egypt. Persia defeated, let's type in Egypt. It says in 525 BC, the Persian Empire led by King Cambyses II, who was Cyrus the Great's son, invaded Egypt. They soundly defeated the Egyptian army at the Battle of Pelusium and took control of Egypt. When the Persian Empire conquered Egypt, it was the largest empire in the world. Egypt then became a satrap, like a province of the Persian Empire. So they conquered that land. They conquered Egypt, and it was a wrap. Okay, this is how they became the largest empire in the world at that time, thanks to Cambyses, right, and Cyrus the Great, of course. Cambyses ended up staying a long time in Egypt. He made Egypt pretty much his home, and so, as a legend is told by Darius the Great, who came in succession to Cambyses. Supposedly, while Cambyses was out there, he killed his brother Bardia, the real Bardia. And so when you reference Daniel's the 11th chapter, and it tells you, I'll get it real quick. So it says here in Daniel's 11:2, and now will I show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet three kings of Persia. Right? So at that time, Darius was the Mede, wasn't a Persian. That's not who he was talking about. So he was talking about Cyrus, and he was talking about Cambyses II, who we reading about, who conquered Egypt. But then, as told by Darius the Great, which was a Persian, that the real Bardia, who was also brother of Cambyses II, son of Cyrus the Great, brother to Cambyses II, Darius told that Cambyses II killed his brother Bardia, the real one, and then a fake one rose up because Cambyses was never at home in I forget, I think it's Ecbatana or whatever the capital city was of Persia. Cambyses was never there. He was always in Egypt. So a pseudo Smyrtus is what they call him on a lot of sites. That's what Darius the Great gave the name to this guy who wasn't even a Persian of that Archimedes line, but came in and fooled everybody and for 7 months ruled until Darius the Great killed him. That's just a little history. But then obviously it says, so that's why a lot of commentaries, they'll leave Bardia out because he's supposed to be the fake Bardia. The real one was killed by his brother Cambyses, which Cambyses later died on his way back to the homeland, capital of Persia. So when the fake pseudo Smyrtus got up in there, Darius killed him. Darius the Great, who was the next ruler, ended up killing him and taking the crown. And so after Darius the Great came Xerxes, or Artaxerxes. That's where you get 300, right? That's why it says, "In the fourth shall be far richer than they are, and by his strength through his riches he shall stir up against the realm of the Grecians," because he started to take and dominate some parts of Greece until Alexander the Great came around. And this is what Daniel 7 is alluding to, and this is why they all tie in, man. And it's just good to know the history of the scriptures and how, you don't need to know every single king or every single dynasty, but there is a lot of information you can know. And there's a lot of, it's worth knowing about the Hellenistic periods. It's worth knowing about, you ain't got to search the Ming Dynasty and that, but it's worth knowing about Egypt and the different kings of Egypt. Back in Daniel's 11, it starts going into the Syrian wars where you got the Ptolemies and the Seleucids. It doesn't even go into Lacenae and Cassander, because they Thrace and in Greece and all of that area in Turkey, all of that area wasn't including our people. And so the Lord really just emphasizes the nations that had the largest empires, and they was also right there. We was always in the mix because our land, which is Palestine or Canaan or Israel, was always in the mix of these different kings that was trying to conquer Egypt. And so going back into Daniel 7 and 5, it says, like a bear, and it raised up on one side. So we know that's the Persians now. Even though it's a Medo-Persian empire, the Persians got the upper hand at the end. And it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it. Now we know that's Croesus, the king of Lydia, Lydia to the north. And then there's Egypt to the south, and then to the west. And then that's Babylon to the south, which Persia conquered 2 of those by Cyrus the Great, and 1 of them in Egypt by Cambyses II, his son. It says, and they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. And that's exactly what Persia did. Devour. All right, subjugate and devour. They had the largest nation up in empire up until that point. And after this I beheld, and lo, and other like a leper. Here comes the Grecians, all right, which is spearheaded by Alexander the Great. It says, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. 4 wings designated the 4 generals. And I like how the commentary breaks this down. Again, I got the true understanding and breakdown from the apostles, and then I just ran through all of the commentary to see who was right, who was wrong, who was close, who was far away. And I was surprisingly got Sir Isaac Newton came the closest. So he's got here, the third beast was the kingdom which succeeded the Persian, and this was the empire of the Greeks. Right, he referenced Daniel's 8 and 6, and he came to the ram that had two horns. That ram symbolized the Medo-Persian empire as well. That's why it has two horns, one for Medes and one for Persians, two separate nations, but they warred together and they were combined together. They fought together, and they're pretty much one empire for a long time until the Persians got the upper hand. It says, which I had seen standing before the river and ran unto him in the fear of his power. So that's Daniel's the 8th chapter, right? Verse 7, and I saw him come close to the ram, and he was moved with choler against him and smote the ram and break his two horns. That's that, going back to that war between Xerxes and Alexander, which Alexander took him down. Alexander did in 11 years swept from the largest takedown of all nations, the fastest growing empire at that point in time ever, which turned into the Hellenistic dynasty, which we're reading about now. And I'm gonna get back to it. Just referencing this, and smote the ram and break his two horns. So the Grecians take down the Medo-Persians, and there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. The ram which thou sawest having two horns are the kings of Media and Persia. So the Bible is very descriptive about who is who. You can't get it confused. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia, verse 21. And the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king, which is Alexander the Great. All right. It was like a leopard to signify its fierceness, and had 4 heads and 4 wings to signify that it would become divided into 4 kingdoms. Daniel's 8 and 22 says, now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of that nation, but not in his power, not in the power of Alexander the Great, because they'll be fighting and warring against each other. Instead, when Alexander the Great was just besieging, and he died, I believe, at 33 or 32, some scholars say, but he did all of that killing in only 11 years. In his first battle, I believe, his first war that he ever won and fought was at 14 years old, if I'm not mistaken. It says, for it continued in a monarchical form during the reign of Alexander the Great and his brothers Aridius and young sons Alexander and Hercules, and break into 4 kingdoms by the governors of provinces, putting the crowns on their own heads. So we have to remember here that it's talking about that number 4, right? The leopard in 4. That's why when you go back into Daniel's, where are we now? Daniel's 4, 7 and 6, it says, in this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon his back 4 wings of the fowl. 4 kingdoms by the governors, his generals basically, by the governors of provinces, putting crowns on their own heads by mutual consent reigning over their provinces. Cassander reigned over Macedon, Greece, and Epirus, which Epirus, let's take a look at what that is. Epirus, there you go, ancient state. Okay. Capital Phoenice. Looks like Thessaly, from ancient Macedonia to the east. Thessaly. All right, what have you. Take a quick image search. There we go. That's all I needed. So it looks like the eastern region of Greece, on the left-hand side of Macedon. This is modern-day Albania. It looks like right beneath modern day Albania. Yep. Epiro over here, west of Thessalia. All right, this is Greece right here. So you have Cassander reigned over Macedon, Greece, and Epirus. Lacemaeus over Thrace and Bithynia. You want to know where Thrace is? Just Google it. Hit the image. You have right here Thrace, which is pretty much where Bulgaria and eastern Greece is today, all the way connecting Turkey. So it's that whole land right there, Thrace. Okay. So he had Thrace, Cassander had Thrace, Lacemaeus had Thrace and Bithynia. Okay, it says Turkey. So it's that small strip at the top of Turkey connecting Thrace with Greece. So it's everything that pretty much connects Greece and Turkey together. Was controlled by Lacemaeus. Now Ptolemy over Egypt, Libya, and Arabia, and Calassia, and Palestine. So Ptolemy had control over Judea and Jerusalem, and Seleucus over Syria. All right, we know what Syria is, right south of Turkey. All right, it says the fourth beast. Let's make sure that I'm done on that. Where we at? Back in verse 6, like a leopard which had upon his back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. All right, we know what the 4 heads was. It says, and of course the speed, 4 wings going into the speed of which Alexander was able and capable of taking down these different nations and these different empires, taking down the dominant empire known as Persia, and going as far west as Afghanistan, or east as Afghanistan, if I'm not mistaken. In 11 years, conquered all of that. So he was doing it expeditiously. Verse 7, after this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured. Iron symbolizes its ability to be strong and unbreakable. It says it devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. All right, 10 horns. Let's finish out real quick, because I'm gonna get down with the 10 horns in a second. But first of all, the 4th beast is symbolizing the Roman Empire. All right, most scholars get this right. Majority of scholars get that right. What they don't usually get right is what the 10 horns are. Especially when it comes to the little horn. They'll say the little horn is the Roman Empire, but I don't want to skip ahead. Just showing you how great and terrible and dreadful, just how the Roman army conquered. They came in, they flushed out Antiochus Epiphanes. They had the Punic Wars. They had, as soon as they started getting the advantage over the Greeks, it was a wrap. People would turn sides against Antiochus. Antiochus had no choice, And when Rome came through, the Most High was with Rome. The Most High was with the Legion, and they were excellent in military, excellent in conquests. Conquests in Egypt, conquests all throughout. I'll take a look at the Greek and the Roman Empire maps now. So the Greeks looked like that. That was the Greek Empire from 750 to 490. Oh, let me make sure it's Greek colonization, 550 BCE. Let's keep going. That looks about right. That's what Alexander the Great did. There it is. So the Greeks, as you can see, all the way westward to what it would be today, like Afghanistan, eastward. All right, conquered Persia, conquered Media. I mean, just kept going all throughout the Persian Gulf. You know, Mesopotamia, got Egypt down, Alexandria set up, you know, Alexandria being known for its libraries and books. If I'm not mistaken, the Septuagint came out of Alexandria, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe by the Romans. It was Latin. But all of these nations began to speak, have Greek traditions and Greek names and Greek clothing. And of course, the Greeks was known for spreading pederasty, which is men having sexual relations with boys. This is still prominent in Greek culture. When you read in the Maccabees, it tells you it says, and it happened after that, Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chedum, had smitten Darius, the king of the Persians and Medes. All right, that's Darius the Great, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece, and made many wars, and won many strongholds, and slew the kings of the earth, and went through to the end of the earth, and took spoils many nations. This is that Greek conquest. This is that leopard with 4 wings and 4 heads, before the 4 heads came up. And so much that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. And he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries and nations and kings who became tributaries unto him. We saw how vast that empire was that they ruled over. This is how it looked. This is that era. The empire of Alexander the Great, his conquest course from Greece to India to Babylon, 334 to 323 BC. 11 years. Conquered all of that in 11 years. Imagine. Anyway, and he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries and nations and kings who became tributaries unto him. And after these things he fell sick and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died. And his servants bare rule, everyone in his place. We got into who those servants was. Lysimaeus, Cassander, Ptolemy, and Seleucid. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. Yeah, this is where that wicked root Antiochus came from, right? From the Seleucids. You had the Ptolemaics, basically controlled Jerusalem. So the 6 Syrian wars that it goes into in Daniel's 11 with Berenice and Ptolemy Soter and Ptolemy Philadelphus and Antiochus Epiphanes and Ptolemy Euergetes, so forth and so on. A lot of history in that time. Let's go back. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, the 4th beast, that's Roman Empire, dreadful and terrible as they were. Let's look at how they. So the Romans did just as good of a number, right? They did just as good of a number. They went all through Africa, Spain, even got much more of Europe. That's why the 10 horns, mainly vassal states that were a lot of Germanic tribe, a lot of Commonwealth, or forget how the elders phrased it, but a lot of vassal states that come mainly from these Gallia and Hispania, Britannia areas, Italia and Dalmatia areas. This is where these vassal states come from. Some even Northern Africa. Right? We'll get into that in a second. But this is the Roman Empire here that the scriptures in Daniel's 7:7 is alluding to. And it devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. Why? Because it wasn't a monarchy. Now it was set up different. All right, in the scriptures I have here are going in. First Maccabees 8:1 says, "Now Judas had heard of the fame of the Romans, that they were mighty and valiant men, and such as would lovingly accept all that joined themselves unto them, and make a league of amity with all that came unto them." Now as you go down to verse 15, you get to the point. Moreover, how they made for themselves a senate house. This is how they differed from the rest of the empires before, who had just pretty much kings and monarchies established, right? Lines and lineages with successors passed down from heir to heir. But this one, there was a senate, okay? Just like today's society in America, set up as a senate. That's why America has a very close relation to ancient Rome. It says, wherein 320 men sat in the council daily. So they had councils, they had senates. Okay. I think 4 major council groups and commissions. It says, consulting a way for the people, to the end that they might be well ordered. And they committed their government to one man every year. So they did have a Caesar, right, who was started out as Julius, but Rome was always about the people. It was a republic. After a certain amount of time, it became a republic, because it was around for a while, but then it became a republic, and that's when they really started to pick up at war, you know. But they were all about the people. Anyway, it says, and they committed their government to one man every year, who ruled over all their country, and that all were obedient to that one, and that there was neither envy or emulation among them. And that lasted up until Rome began to, become envious and hatred and crooked and evil. Because as we just read, since the time of East Edomites, by the way of the leopard, the Grecians came into power, evils were multiplied. So of course Rome became corrupt after a certain point in time. And you could learn about their governors and their leaders like Caligula. Just watch that movie if you want to learn about how Rome really went down, or watch about Nero. And so at the end of Daniel 7:7, and it had 10 horns. And shout out to the brothers with the diligent search over there at GMS Dallas for sharpening me up on this. Because I always heard way back it was basically the Goths and the Visigoths, and I remember Franks, but then the breakdown, you hear very few and far in between. But through the spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahshua, we got these videos and recorded epistles, so we can go back and watch them. And lo and behold, the brothers saved the information, and here it is, the 10 horns, Salakia, that came from the fourth beast. It says Anglo-Saxons, Suevi, Visigoths, Vandals, Burgundians, Franks, Alemanni, Lombards, Ostrogoths, Heruli. Those are the 10 horns on the fourth beast. Here's another depiction of it. As you can see, the 10 horns were a part of the Roman Empire divided, which it was divided the eastern by the western, The eastern became what is known as the Byzantine Empire, where the capital was Byzantium or Constantinople, the capital of Byzantium, which is named after Emperor Constantine, who basically was pivotal in setting up Christianity as it is today. The custom of Christmas, the Council of Nicaea, December 25th, and a lot of that came out of the Holy Roman Empire of the East. But then you had the West. In the West, these tribes, these different Germanic tribes, and they ended up making up what it was called the 10 Horns. Once again, the Anglo-Saxons, the Franks, the Burgundians, the Visigoths, the Suevi, the Vandals, the Heruli, the Ostrogoths, and the Lombards, and the Alemanni. All right. And Ella Yashwamba points out what these are today. I'll play that clip.
Empire, which was established from 331 BC to 146 BC. Now I got my notes here, so I can. There's 10 horns is going into
the 7 heads.
The common markets. Yeah, you can go to the
common markets, vassal states. The 10 horns are the Vandals, the Ostrogoths, the Alemanni, the Franks, all right, the Visigoths, the Burgundians, Lombards, the Anglo-Saxons, the Suevi, and the Heruli. So basically, these were vassal states. They were subordinate to Rome, but they had power. And just like America has vassal states, Rome had vassal states, and these were the vassal states.
Also showing you that at that time it was a melting pot just like it is now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Right. And these nations always dealt amongst each other. You know what I'm saying? Always dealt amongst each other. Whether they was trading, who's allies, it's the same thing, man. Same exact thing.
Today they would be the Belgium, France, the Netherlands, Italy, Germany, Luxembourg, Denmark, Ireland, Greece, Spanish, and Portugal, which is now expanded.
You started off at 10, but now it's like 29. Yeah.
What they reference in here is let's see if I type it in. I type in GMS 10 horns GMS. They're referencing the what is known as today's I'm not mistaken. They're referencing this EEC. All right. He's referencing the EEC, which became European Union. Let me just make sure he's referencing the European Union.
Allies, it's the same thing, man. Same exact thing.
Today they would be the Belgium, France, the Netherlands, Italy, Germany, Luxembourg, Denmark, Ireland, Greece, Spanish, and Portugal, which is now expanded.
You started off at 10, but now it's like 29. Yeah, and what's intriguing about that is that's the EU. No, that's NATO, correct?
That's the EU.
That's the EU, which was established by the Treaty of Rome.
Treaty of Rome.
Back in the 40s.
Established by the Treaty of Rome. It's around like the 40s, like 1951.
Right.
Yep.
Might bring this pre-second Ezra chapter.
Which a lot of these NATO and EU countries, a lot of them intertwined. For instance, Greece is both part of NATO and the EU. Britain is both a part of NATO and the EU. Spain is not a part of the EU, was a part of NATO. And so, sometimes you can get caught up on which one is NATO and which one is but generally, based upon Revelations, the beast with the 7 heads and 10 horns is NATO. Now the EU is that Rome coming back all over again. But the vassal states ended up turning into what is the EU, and partially is some of them is also, of course, pulled into NATO. Just look at the location of where the vassal states are, and you could see, that's obviously, they are obviously a part of NATO. I mean, just looking at the vassal states here, once again, the Franks, the Anglo-Saxons, right? The Heruli, Burgundians, Alemanni. These is mainly, a lot of these is a part of NATO and the EU. So you can see why that beast is just, Franks, Alemanni. Yeah, you can see why that beast. So, but this is what happened to Rome. It was taken out, and by 538, this is what Rome turned into. These different vassal states ruling over this land, which used to be conquered by Rome. So, as the scripture says, it was diverse because it had a senate, it had a council, and it had an emperor, modern day president today. Diverse from the rest of them. Greece didn't have that. Medo-Persia didn't have that. Assyrian Empire, Babylon didn't have that. And it had 10 horns, and so those are the vassal states that came from it. Now it says, verse 8, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. All right, now these countries ended up being responsible for conquering a lot of land, most notably America. Now the little horn that came up between them is America, right? That's why NATO is closely tied with America. America is a part of it. EU, even though EU is not in European Union, America's not a part of that, but they're closely tied to it because the little horn comes out of among them. It says, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. Well, that's America, because by the time these vassal states were around in 538 BC, America hadn't been founded yet. But what happened was the Anglo-Saxons, along with the some of the Suevi and some of the was turned into the Spanish, as you can see over there in the continent, and the Visigoths turned into the Spanish, and they ended up going over there to South and Central America, right, establishing places like Brazil and Mexico and whatnot, and later calling themselves Spanish or Spaniards, and right, and the Franks and the Alemanni. And basically what happened is, along with the Anglo-Saxons, it was the Dutch and a few of these vassal states ended up over there in America. Mainly the ones who ended up calling themselves the British, the French, and the Spanish. Okay? The British, the French, and the Spanish, which came out of the 10 horns. Right? This whole landmass where the 10 horns are, those are where the British, the French, and the Spanish, who ended up conquering America, fighting over it. Some fighting over everything west of the Prime Meridian, basically. If I'm not mistaken, that's the line of the west of everything in the west of Europe. They divided and spoiled. Similar to Africa. But this little horn is dealing with America. Now, when you read the commentary, they never say it's America. They just say it's the Roman Catholic Church. But the reason why there came up among them another little horn, because America pretty much fought its way out of being a horn itself, or being just one of their horns. America sought independence from Britain. America went to war, even though they were of the British and of the Spaniards. They just ended up having their own thing, fighting off the British, and the British pretty much didn't have any more control over America, as they once did. America started establishing its own, right? Its own way, its own Senate. They didn't bow to the king or the queen anymore. It was different. And they were a mixture. But the three horns that were there, it says before whom there were three of the first horns plucked up by the root. So America pushed out of three that initially came into America, the Britons, the French, and the Spanish. By the way, the first city ever established in America is called St. Augustine in Florida, founded by the Spanish. All right, not by the British, but founded by the Spanish. First, the oldest city in America. So the Spanish took over, places with these Spanish names like California and the New Mexico area and Arizona. And the French had areas like St. Louis, Louisiana. The whole Louisiana purchase involved America purchasing land back from the French. French also took over Haiti. But there was also the Brits, who had New England and areas of the east side of America. So America pretty much pushed all of these horns, these three horns, up out of there and became its own horn. It says, and by the roots, it says, and behold, in this horn were eyes like a man and a mouth speaking great things. As you can see here, it says in the NLT, this little horn had eyes like human eyes and a mouth that was boasting arrogantly, because that's America. America is proud. America cannot be humbled. We got the largest, greatest everything. If you ask in America, it's the greatest place on earth. All right. It goes around the world, bossing the rest of the world, bossing nations. All right. It's proud. It's lifted up. It speaks great things. It's stout. America sends people to the moon, supposedly. They shoot up satellites. They want to dominate and control the world. Number one currency. Typical badass mentality. That's America, the proud ones. Of all the horns, it's the most boisterous, it's the most loud, it's the most arrogant. And that's why the scripture said the beast shall hate the whore. All that were in confederacy with thee. So America pretty much drives the beast. It sitteth upon the beast. That's that great whore. What comes from America as a sign that we just had. What comes from America is all of these things that come from Babylon. 10. Let me see if I can get this. 10 horns. And I'm going to finish out right after this. As you can see here, 10 horns. What comes from America? We got it here. Democracy, religion, idolatry, homosexuality, lies, adultery, covetousness, and murder. That's the American way. Definitely murder and lies, right? The scriptures on to them. Bloody city full of lies and robbery. That's America. So it's pretty much it for Daniel's 7, because ultimately how it ends is Yahushua returns. Right? I beheld, verse 9, I beheld till the thrones were cast down. Meaning all of these ancient places of empires and nations are finally done away with, including the 10 horns. Right? Because there's a big gap between the Roman Empire, that is that fourth beast, and then the little horn coming out of the three horns and plucking them up by the roots. There's a big long gap between that. See, the fourth beast falls for a period of time, as according to Revelations, the 13th chapter, but that deadly wound is healed, so it kind of comes back right before the great day of the Lord, where he's gonna, Daniel beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit where? On the seat of, on the seat of the throne. The many thrones and the many chairs and the many rulerships and kingdoms are thrown down, but the Ancient of Days now sits on the throne, whose garment was white as snow, and hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne was like that of a fiery flame, and wheels as the burning fire. Verse 11, I'm just going to jump because I'm trying to finish it out. I beheld them because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake. I beheld even till the beast was slain and his body destroyed and given to the burning flame. As concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. Because that Son of Man came only to do what? To serve them all and take the dominion back and have full control over the kingdom forevermore. I'm Barad Desire. This video was edifying. The Water for staying with me. Till next time, Shalom.